Welcome to the skateboarder character modeling, texturing, rigging, and animation tutorials. We're going to be modeling a skateboarder and then texturing it and then rigging it for animation and then animating it. We want to make sure we get some important things taken care of first before we actually get busy working in 3ds Max, and the main thing is that you have a production folder. I'm going to open up mine. It's very important that you have a production folder. You should know that by now, but I can't stress it enough. Every time I talk about projects, I remind students you have to have a production folder for all of your files to reside in. Texture files are linked, and so therefore if you were to move things around and stuff, you would lose your links on your textures, and that just creates problems. You'll notice that in my production folder I've already saved my beginning 3ds Max file. I haven't done anything in it yet, but I went ahead and saved it as Gary_skateboarder 5/30/13 because that's what today's date is. And that's what I would like you to do, or not like you to do, that's what I want you to do. Use your name on your file when you save it, and then identify the project, and then put a date at the end. The reason for this is a variety of reasons. I need to see your name on it. It's nice to have that first when you turn things in, and identifying it for what kind of project it is. But also with the date, every time you finish for the day and then you start again the next day, you want to do a save as and update the date so you have another version of the project starting with the new work that you're going to be doing. Why that's important is because, you know, this is digital stuff and digital stuff happens. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're always, you know, taking care of yourself and not losing work, or at least not any more work than is necessary. I mean, sometimes stuff happens, and it's just a good process and a good thing to do. Okay, the other two things that are in here are a couple of images, and those images are going to be what we're going to be starting with using as templates to start modeling our character. We want to make sure that we have a guide to work from, and this is a really good way to do this, and you'll see how it works in a second. So we're going to be importing those. So anyway, this is my production folder, and yours should start off looking like this right away also. Okay, so do that first. The next thing that we want to do is we want to adjust our viewports. You'll notice that we have a front viewport here, and we have a top viewport, and we have a left viewport. That's the default. I never understood why the top viewport is next to the front viewport. That just doesn't make any sense to me, especially for this project. We need to have the left viewport next to the front viewport. So we're going to make that change right now. So you just click on the viewport name and change it from top to left. And then, since it might be handy to have a top viewport, let's have the top viewport down here. So we'll change the left viewport to a top viewport. Okay, there we go. And now we got a start here. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to need to create a couple planes here, but first we're going to get our images so that we can use the, well, I'll show you in just a second here. We're going to get our images so we can get some information from them as well as to actually use them and apply them to the planes that we're going to be creating. So let's go to the material editor, start off with here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose a material slot here, and then go to the maps rollout, and the diffuse color slot. I'm going to open that up, and if your maps rollout is not open, then just open it up so you can get to the bitmap. I mean, on your particular 3ds Max document. I mean, document is probably open. But go ahead and double click on bitmap, and then we want to navigate to where our production folder is, and that's on the desktop for me. Should be probably the same thing for you. And I'm going to open up my skateboarder production folder, and I'm going to get my front view image and open that up. And now that's on. Now it's in my material slot. Now, one of the kind of handy things, you can do this or not do it. It just depends on whether you care about this or not. But in this sample type, you can actually change the geometric shape that the image is showing up on in the material editor to something else. And a cube is nice because it's flat. So I'm going to do the same thing right now to this one, and then On this one, I'm going to go into the maps rollout down here, and I'm going to go to the diffuse color slot, go to bitmap, and then get the left view and open that up. And now I've got my right and my left views here. I'm going to go up, and one of the things that you should get in the habit of doing is naming everything. That gives you an option for naming it. So I'm going to call this left, and I'm going to call this, oops, well actually I do want that open, but not for the moment. And I want this to be front. Okay, now they're labeled, and that's going to be more obvious, you know what they are. Let's go ahead and make our planes, and we'll apply them. So in the front viewport, I'm going to create a plane, and I'm not going to worry about the dimensions right now. We'll get that information in a minute. And that's going to come right from our image. So let's go ahead and do that in a second, but first let's get 1 and 1 for our segments, because we don't really want any segments on this. We also want to change this from a wireframe view to a shaded view. And if you have realistic for the, you know, anywhere, I would recommend changing that view from realistic to shaded. Realistic doesn't really give you a very realistic, you know, look, to tell you the truth. Now let's go ahead and apply our, well, not yet. We're going to go in here to our front view and go to the diffuse color slot, and then go down here to view image, which is under cropping and placement, view image under bitmap parameters, cropping and placement, view image, and that's what the front view is going to look like. This is the proportional dimensions here. I'm going to right click in here, and you'll see that it gives me some information. I've got a width of 504 and a height of 840. That's in pixels. Okay, well, we don't really care about pixel dimensions. All we care about is the ratio and the correct proportions. If you know, 504, well, 500 is close enough, and 840, you know, that's fine. So if we were actually to just simply go 50 and 84, that's the same proportion. So all we need to do is just use those dimensions, so we don't end up with this really massive size plane in here in inches, because that's what we use in 3ds Max. So let's go ahead and use 50 for the width and 84 for the height, which will actually be the length probably when we go to our plane. So let's go ahead and do that really quick right now. Let's put this guy away and select that. Go to the material, the modify panel here, or tab, and let's change the width to 50 as we were just talking about. So that's going to be 50 inches and 84. Okay, inches. Hit enter. And that is, as you can see, the same proportional size and shape and everything that we had before. The next thing we want to do is select the move tool, and then go down to the x-axis at the bottom of the interface here and change that to 0. Now the plane is centered in the world on the x-axis, and that's what we want for now. And I'm going to move that down. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here, so I can see a little bit better, get the positioning. This doesn't, the up and down doesn't have to be precise, but you know, it's nice to get it close. All right, so we've got to start here. I'm going to change this color to something a little less, you know, busy looking. So I'm going to change it to this really pale, like blue or something. Say okay, there we go. It's a little bright of a color, be distracting. Now what we want to do is we want to create a left view. So but first I'm going to go ahead and apply my front image to this. And if I go ahead and select Show Shaded Material in Viewport right here, this button, when I apply it, it should show up. Now that's because, well, for now, at least anyway, see-through is not turned on here. We also want to turn off, and that's in the display panel up here. We want to turn off Show Frozen in Gray for this object that's selected, because when we if we were to when we do freeze these panels, because they are going to be these planes are going to be frozen, so that we don't accidentally select them when we're working on our character. Okay, so we'll go ahead now and make another of these planes, and the way that we're going to do it is we're going to just simply copy this plane, and we're going to move it, rotate it, and copy it at the same time. So we get the rotate tool, and by the way, let's do this. A really good habit to get into, and I should be doing this as well, is to get in the habit of right-clicking in your viewport. You right-click in your viewport, there's all kinds of useful information. We know about freezing selections and hiding and unhiding and stuff like that. But you can also select your move, rotate, and scale tools right here, really handy, without having to constantly be going up here and selecting them. So you just right-click in the viewport that you're working in, and I want to rotate this, so I'm going to choose rotate from here. Okay, I'm going to hold down the shift key. Oh, by the way, I also want to turn on angle snap. Okay, because that will snap it in 5-degree increments as I'm rotating. So what I want to do is I want to rotate this guy around till it's at precisely 90 degrees. And I want to make it a copy, not an instance, and say OK. Now really what I should be doing, and I should have done already, let's do this now. Remember I said about naming things? Well, I'm going to name this guy right here, and I'm going to call this front. And I'm going to name the left one left. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now move these into position. So I'm going to move this front one back a little ways so that we'll be able to see our box that we're going to be making soon. Okay. And I'm going to move this one over here. And then I'm going to apply the left view. So let's go back to my material editor. Get my left image here, and make sure that I have show shaded material and viewport selected, and then grab this and apply it to, okay, now behave yourself. I must have missed it. All right, let's select it instead then. Let's do that. And then I'm just going to, there's another way you can assign a material to selection is actually by clicking on the assign material to selection button. So let's do that. So there we go. So there's our left view. All right, now we can put this away, and let's change this from wireframe to shaded, just like we did for the front viewport. And we want to actually rotate this guy around. He's facing the wrong direction, so naturally. So let's go ahead and rotate him around. So let's get the when I copied it, I rotated it the wrong direction, and that's fine. So I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to rotate this around 180 degrees, and you'll see that when it gets to 180 it snaps right to 5% increments, and it's right there. So now it's showing up in the left viewport properly. Okay, and there we go. Now we have our viewports set up here. The other thing that we're going to want to do now that we have things kind of lined up, let's line this up on the y-axis at 0 position. Oops, Control Z. That was a mistake. I turned it upside down. That's not what I meant to do at all. Control Z. Let's undo. All right, let's undo that. Let's bring this back to 180. That's interesting. Okay, so I have the wrong tool selected. All right, so in the y-axis, I want to make sure that this guy is at 0, and he is. Surprisingly enough, he is, which is great. And then this one, of course, needs to be at 0 on the x-axis because we're in the front view. All right, so we're getting pretty close here to start boxing this out a little bit here. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these grid lines here. And so we'll just click on the plus sign in the viewport, turn off show grids. The left viewport, turn off show grids, and there we have it. Okay, good. So now we're in pretty good shape. Now, let's go ahead and maximize our, manually maximize our viewports here and zoom in so that they're pretty much the same size. That's pretty darn close, and that'll be just fine. So now we can see what we're doing. Okay, now's the time to freeze each one of these guys. So I'm going to select each one, both of these at the same time. And we're going to say freeze selection just by right clicking in the viewport. Okay. Remember, right-click in the viewport. When in doubt, if you can't find something, try right-clicking first, and then you'll probably find it. If not, then there's other places that you might have to look. All right, so these are now frozen, and because the show frozen gray was unchecked in here, we can now begin working with the box that we're going to be making here. So let's go to the Create tab, and we're going to select Box. All right, and just draw out a box. And let's not worry about the actual size of it yet. We're going to change that pretty quick here. But we want to make sure that it's kind of close. Get our Move tool, see if we can line this guy up here in the right viewport. By the way, if you want to go from one viewport to another, select it, right-click to select the viewport. That way you won't deselect what you have selected that you're working with. It's a good, handy trick. Okay, so this is going to need to be a different size, and we want to make sure that it has some segments on it. We're going to do that in a second, but we also want to make sure that it's transparent. So we're going to have this selected, go to the display panel, turn on see-through, okay? And of course, we don't have to double check, but sometimes you might have to double check and go into materials and make sure that enable transparency is turned on, okay? So we want see-through turned on, so we'll be able to see our template as we're modeling. Okay, and we have the templates, frozen so that we can't accidentally select them when we're modeling, working on the model and doing other things. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and go to the Modify tab, and let's give it some segments, and we're going to resize this a little bit too. The other thing we want to do first, probably before anything else, is go ahead and make sure that with the Select and Move tools selected, in the x-axis down here at the bottom of the interface, change that to 0 and make sure that our box is perfectly centered in here. We can resize our box by, this is actually in pretty good shape right here just as it is. Maybe it could be a little bit less wide, so that, because we're going to extrude arms out from here roughly and so forth, and then we're going to reshape this to follow the contours, initially just the contours of our templates, and then we're going to start turning it into an actual shape that looks like a surfer guy here. Alright, so the height needs to be a little bit more also, or length rather. That's a little misleading, isn't it? Just the naming of those things. And then reposition it. Make sure you're using your axes. That'll make sure that you're just moving it up and down and not side to side. If you're not, you have to be very careful about that. And where we're going obviously is from the top of his shoulders to his crotch, and that's basically the torso area. And that's what we're working on right now, is just the torso. We'll be extruding arms and legs out, and then ultimately a head as well later on. Okay, so let's make sure that, so we have it in shaded view. We want to make sure that edge faces is turned on in both of these. If it's not already, make sure edge faces is selected. Alright, and it should say so, shaded plus edge faces. And that way when we begin to increase the length segments, we want about 6 of those. So we have enough segments to be able to shape this out. For the width segments, we want to make sure that we have 4. 4 should do it for right now. And we're going to add and cut and make some more adjustments to this model as we go. And then the height segments, we only want 3 for the height, and that's for the side part. And of course, like I said, it's a little misleading with 3ds Max considers to be a height when you make something. Depends on what viewport you make it in. Anyway, so now we have a beginning shape here, and what we're going to start doing now is just roughly shaping this to the contour, or whatever you call that, the profile of the character. So let's go ahead and change this now. Well, we have to, in order to be able to manipulate this, we have to turn it into an editable poly. So once again, with it selected, if I just simply right-click, say Convert to, then I can go down and choose Convert to Editable Poly, the second one in the list there. All right, we're going to start working with vertices. That's the main thing that we're going to be using right away. Oh, by the way, I was getting a little ahead of myself here. So let's go to polygons first, because really what we want to do is we want to delete half of this, box here because we're going to apply what's called a symmetry modifier to it. We'll see what that does in just a second. So let's go ahead and go to Edit, Delete, and we delete half of those polygons. Now we can go into the modifier list here and choose Symmetry. Nope, a little bit farther down. Choose Symmetry, and it seems to disappear, but that's only because we have to check this flip box, and now we can see that it, and you're going to see the magic of what happens here. The Symmetry modifier is a wonderful thing. It allows us to work in the one view here that is where the character is symmetrical. 2 arms, 2 legs, one on each side of his body, and so forth. 2 eyes on either side, the nose center in the middle, and so forth, all that stuff. So that way we can work on this side, and it will automatically do the same thing that we're doing on this side to the other side. It's going to mirror it. Okay, so now what we want to do is get out of here. Make sure. Oh, I just realized what we just. Hang on a sec. Let's do that. You know, I probably should have. Nah, I think we'll be all right. So now we're going to go into vertices. And we can start shaping this out and kind of, you know, getting it roughed out a little bit. So we're going to start by just kind of choosing some of these polygons. I want you to notice what I'm doing here. And I want you to look in both viewports while I'm doing this, you know, one at a time. But, you know, check out both viewports. I'm going to select these vertices by drawing a marquee around them. I'm not going to select just one, because if I select just one, I'm only going to work with that one. And I need to get the entire row. So I'm going to select it like this, and you'll notice that all 4 vertices in the row on the side here are now selected because that's what I want. And I'm just going to move that over, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select that, move it over, okay, and that's a start. And I'll move that over just a little bit. And we're going to worry about shaping this properly for the legs and everything later on, but right now what we're going to do is just do this kind of thing. All right, now, as we continue to rough this out, what we're going to end up doing is just, you know, kind of making sure that it's, like I said, following the profile or contour, outside contour of our character for now. And then we're going to start really getting into, you know, adding more and more detail and working it out carefully. So we're going to start by moving some things. And in fact, one of the things we're going to do a lot of times is select a whole row, right click, choose scale, and actually scale those in like that, and then right click and choose move, and then move them into position to make sure that they're going to be sort of correct. Also, we're going to be rotating, okay, and then perhaps moving down, you know, in this case, so that that's getting into position sort of approximately where the neck is going to be, okay. Move this over a little bit more, perhaps scale it a little bit more. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's just scale it on the axis. You have to be careful and notice that when and I'll try to mention it, but notice when I'm scaling on the axis and when I'm scaling uniformly the whole thing. It just really depends on the situation. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to scale this on this axis, right? And you can see that it's going in here, but it's still out here. So what I need to do is get the move tool and then move those into position. This needs to be scaled here also. Scale it in a little bit, right click, move. Same thing here, scale, just a little bit, there we go, move. And of course you can see I'm right-clicking, right-clicking the viewport to get those tools. And then this one is probably pretty good. I'm just going to move it over a little bit. This one's going to need to be scaled out this time. Scale, and then scale it out a little bit, like about like that. Get the move tool, make sure that it's in position. And we can also think about how we're going to be you know, moving things down and up and so forth, and how the angle of the shirt's going to be. We're going to be detailing this out much later, but you know, we'll get a start here. Rotate this a little bit like that. I got to get that angle snap turned off so I have a little more control. In this case, I don't need angle snap on. Remember, angle snap is for working with the rotate tool. 3D snap is for moving around, selecting and moving, and it snaps to the grid. And then the percent snap tool is for scaling, because you scale in percentages. You rotate in degrees by angles. All right, so let's get my move tool. Sort of move that up a little bit. In this case, I'm kind of adjusting it by grabbing the center plane here on the y-axis so that I can adjust that a little bit better. And this I'm just going to scale in a little bit and move it just over a little bit, and that's going to be approximately where we're going to ultimately extrude the leg straight down here. Okay. All right, now the arms are going to be extruded out from this area right here, and it's going to really be sort of from these polygons right here. Now we're going to want to move these polygons around a little bit, and the vertices around so we can have the polygons in position. And let's just move those guys down right now just to kind of get an idea of what we're doing here. Let's maybe move that down. In fact, undo here. Let's let those guys be right there. That's fine. This one we want to probably leave in position for now. Let's just leave that guy right there. And in fact, these two right here probably didn't need to be moved, now that I think about it, because when we have these selected right here, you can see that those are the same, some polygons here. One of the things that might be handy to do occasionally is to go in here and kind of check out. I'm going to turn off enable transparency in the perspective view, because we don't need to have it see through in the perspective view, and it's easier to see what's going on. So once in a while you want to look in the perspective view to kind of see how things are coming along and get a sense of kind of, oh, okay, I kind of see how that shape is coming to sort of represent the torso of our character. Okay. This is going to be the bottom of his shirt. His legs are going to get extruded out there. We're going to actually create some more cuts in here later on, so we can shove the legs, those edges up underneath, so that it feels like the shirt is coming down over his butt and his legs and stuff. Okay. So what we have going on here right now is we're going to actually end up, when we get done with the basic roughing out stage and just getting the proportions correct by using our templates, we're going to hide our templates ultimately, and we're going to get busy just in the perspective view with moving vertices around and shaping out our character based on the concept drawing. And also just simply the way that you realize it should look. I mean, obviously, if you look at it, especially from this perspective, you see how very boxy and square it is. We're going to need to round things off and make them look more natural, okay, and correct, okay. All right, so let's go back into, take a look at our front and side views. So what we got going on right here is we can start kind of like evening out the spacing of our, oops, made a mistake there. One of the things I said before, what we want to do is for right now, grab all of the vertices in a row, okay, and move them. All right, and same thing here, grab all those vertices in a row, move those over a little bit. Just trying to even these out. That's probably a little bit more than it needs to be moved over here. Let's move that back over this way a little bit. And then grab this one, move this over, kind of centered in that area right there. All right, now like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of cutting and adding more polygons as a result, and edges and so forth, to work with what we're doing very, very soon. So keep in mind that this probably looks a little bit wrong right here in the front view, but we have to realize that we're going to be really manipulating this later on in the perspective view to get it really correct and looking the way that we want it to. One of the things that we'll do is, we can go ahead and sort of even some of this out, but more likely what will be better is to actually create a cut through here. And we could do that now, but we'll just wait until the next video to take care of that. All right. The next video will be about actually extruding arms and legs out and shaping things a little bit more carefully.